Hey everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. My name is Ruben and today I'm going to be talking you through the Jobe Yarra. The Jobe Yarra is a traditional all-round inflatable stand-up paddleboard. So with this board, you're going to be able to get into the sport for the very first time. You're going to be able to paddle a little bit of a distance, maybe catch the odd little wave, but generally do a lot of different disciplines in stand-up paddleboarding. Jobe are a very established brand in the water sports industry. They've been making water ski equipment, donuts, wakeboards, all that sort of stuff for many, many years. And they've actually been making stand-up paddleboards for a fair amount of time now. But this is actually the first time that we've actually got on a Jobe paddleboard ourselves. We've heard of a lot of you who have already got them, got into paddleboarding and ask us questions about them. So it's been great for us to actually get our hands on one of these boards. So the board specifications, it's 10'6" long, it's 32 inches wide, it's 6 inches thick. The volume is 310 litres. When we weighed this board with the fin, it weighed 9.7 kilograms. And it comes as a complete package with a board, paddle, pump, leash and bag at £699, $799 and €799. This board in review is the teal colour, but you can also get it in the red and the steel blue colour as well. The construction of this Yarra, it's made with Jobe's heat bonded technology, which is where the two layers of PVC fabric that are on the top and the bottom of the board are not glued like in the old days, they are melted together. So you're reducing the weight of the glue. You're also reducing the element of human error because nobody has to put two layers of glue on. Then on the top and the bottom of the board in the middle, you'll notice an extra layer of PVC material. That's the stringer. That's going to give the board extra stiffness. We're going to speak about stiffness in way more detail in a minute. And also another extra layer of PVC material is the extra rail band that's going along the top edge of the rail. And it's even incorporated around the sort of bungee system here. That just gives you an extra layer of protection to stop any air coming out of the board. So that's enough of the catalogue stuff and the stuff you can find on the internet. Now let's go on to our SUPboarder thoughts. So the way we're going to do this review, we're going to do it from start to finish, how you would go paddleboarding. So we're going to talk about the bag and how comfortable it is, talking about inflating the board, getting the board ready, carrying the board, getting the fittings, getting down to the water, then looking at what it's like on the water, what it's like to paddle, what the paddle's like to use, and then deflating it, packing it away. And I'll give you some pros and cons at the end of the video. And by the end of this video, hopefully you have a good understanding if the Yarra is a board that you should buy into. So starting off with the bag you get with your package. Very different bag from many other inflatable paddleboards on the market. It's actually a dry bag. The bag itself is a little bit more basic because of that. So when you are carrying it and using it on your back, it is comfortable, but it's not super comfortable. So if you're planning to walk miles and miles and miles, you will need to require a bit of extra padding, maybe put your towels down the side to make it a little bit more comfortable. But if you're walking 200-300 meters from the car park to your paddle location, this bag is absolutely adequate. I do like the way that they've taken the EVA deck pad that's on the board itself and actually placed it on the back area. It's just a nice little feature. Again, it's reusing the same materials, sort of shows the continuity throughout the board. Getting the board out of the bag, it's super easy because the bag is nice and big. Then when it comes to inflating your board, you've got the Jobe two-way pump, which basically means you can pump on the upstroke and on the downstroke and get a lot of air in the board quite quickly. And then when the pumping gets hard, you can switch the lever over to just pump on the downstroke. Now it's a Jobe branded pump, but it's actually a Bravo super pump, which is one of the best pumps on the market. So you have a nice, good quality pump in the package to get your air into the board. The recommended PSI pressure for this board is 14 to 20 PSI. Obviously, if you're a lighter paddler, you're not going to need to put as much pressure in it. If you're a heavier paddler, having that extra pressure is going to give you a better ride in the water. We will speak in a bit more detail about our deflection test, which is where we measure how bendy this board is in a minute. To pump the board up to 15 PSI, it's going to take you about 4.5 minutes, which is a very standard time for a board of this size using that type of pump. And because it's only got one inflation valve, it is a very simple process to do. When your board is all pumped up, then you need to fit the fin to the board. Turning the board over, you'll see that the Jobe Yarra is fitted with an easy fin box, which is a very easy fin to use. And for some reason, this one, we've used lots of other easy fin boxes in the past, but this fin, maybe they've done a slight alteration to the fin itself. It goes in really, really easy in the fin box, like one-handed, not a problem at all. Has a simple clip at the back there, and that locks the fin in place. You even get a spare little clip just in case you lose it. We've been using these sort of fin boxes for quite a few years. We haven't lost one, but obviously it could be done, but you've got that spare clip just in case. Then you've got to fit your leash. With this board, you get a nice green color one. It's a coiled leash, which is a fantastic leash to have for all-round paddling. The reason a lot of people have coiled leashes over the sort of more traditional straight leashes is because they don't drag in the water, so they're not going to catch on seaweed or bits of debris. So for most of you, you're going to be attaching that leash onto your ankle if you're paddling in an open water area without any current or obstacles. If you're unsure about the problems with paddling in moving water, definitely have a watch of the video that I put a link up on the screen above. It's our SUP Safe series, and it speaks about leashes and knowing the importance of using a quick release and the issues around paddling in moving water. It's very, very important you understand the risks of paddling in any sort of moving water. So definitely watch that video over a few minutes and you'll have a clear understanding of what we mean. Either before or after you put your leash on, you're going to have to put your paddle together because it's a 3-piece paddle, so it fits nicely on the backpack. The paddle itself is actually a very nice paddle, and it's a much better paddle than many other brands of the price point of board because it's a 20% carbon, 80% glass fiber paddle. Now, the advantages of having a carbon or a glass fiber in a paddle opposed to an aluminium paddle is you're going to get a lot more stiffness. A stiffer paddle is going to allow you to paddle faster, and it's going to allow you to basically put less effort in to go further, which is what everybody wants to do when they're going stand-up paddleboarding. The nice thing about those 3-piece paddles as well, opposed to other brands, is that the one we've put together, we didn't have to do any adjustments to the clip system. It was really nice and tight, so you could click it in, lock it up. It was firm to push the lock over, but the advantage of that is it doesn't twist in the slightest. Every other paddle brand that we have tested in the past, we've always had to get a screwdriver and just tighten up the locks which keep your paddle from twisting, which is fine, but this has come straight out the bag perfect. So really nice to have a good secure paddle to go paddling with. A fully adjustable height paddle, so you're going to find lots of family members are going to be able to use it. Then you've got to get your Yarra onto the water. Now the great thing about this is there is lots of ways to carry this board. The most common way, and if you're paddling on your own, you're going to be doing is using the central handle. You've got a large, comfortable webbing handle, a little bit of neoprene underneath the handle to give it a little bit more comfort. It's nicely balanced in the middle of the board, which is a really basic thing, but some other brands don't quite get it central and your nose is sticking down or your tail is sticking down. This one is perfectly in the middle. If you're paddling with a couple of you or you're not strong in your arms, you can use the front and back handles to carry a board together. A great feature, makes it much easier to get in and out of the water. Just having extra handles in lots of different places really does make it easier to carry your board. And also there's even a potential of using the side bungees here as little handles. Extra, they can definitely take it. They're very heavy duty bungees. And because this board only weighs 9.7 kilograms, you've got a fairly lightweight board, so that's easy to carry down to the water as well. When you get on the water, the first thing you'll notice is the deck pad that you're going to be standing on. The deck pad and the main standing area is a crocodile skin style deck grip. It's EVA foam padding, it's nice and thick, it's nice and grippy, and it's very comfy. And at the back of the board, you'll notice that the deck pad changes to a diamond sort of cut deck pad. When you're standing on the board, because it's 32 inches wide, which is a very common width for a lot of all-round paddleboards, you're going to find it's going to offer you a good amount of stability. So if you first get on the paddleboard, you're going to find it's not too wobbly. And then as soon as you get your paddle strokes in, start moving the board forward, you're going to notice straight away that this board actually goes in a much straighter line compared to many other boards on the market of the same size. It's one of the biggest things we've noticed straight away. The reason for this is all to do with the fin box placement. The fin itself is actually quite a small fin. It's only an 8-inch fin, but because the fin box is placed near the back of the board, quite far back maybe compared to some other boards in the market, it really It allows you to paddle in a straighter line. Also, it's got a nice amount of glide to it, so a couple paddle strokes and you're going to move along. It's not a really slow board to paddle. There's the perfect amount of rocker on this board. There's not too much which slows the board down because it's too curvy, and it's not too flat which makes the board nosedive all the time in any bumps. The next thing we're going to speak about is the stiffness, because that's related to the stability. If you're standing on a board and it's really bendy, it's actually going to be a lot less stable. So with this board, like with many of our inflatable paddle boards, we put it through our deflection test, which is where we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put a weight of 75 kilograms in the center of the board, and then we measure how much the board bends or deflects. Now, we did do this test at 2 different PSI pressures. We did it at 14 PSI and 20 PSI. At 14 PSI, it dropped 11 millimeters, which is fairly stiff on its own, and at 20 PSI, it dropped 9 millimeters. Now, in relation to other boards on the market, the stiffest boards we've ever tested have dropped about 7. And the most flexible boards of this thickness, 6 inches, drop about 22 now. They're getting stiffer, but they're definitely up in the 20s. So to have a board of this price point and at that low PSI pressure of 14 PSI, only dropping 11 millimeters, is actually a very, very stiff board. And it just shows if you wanted to have a stiffer board, if you are a heavier rider, you put that extra PSI pressure in it, you're going to have that stiffer board. And again, the stiffer the board, the better the ride is going to be, the faster you're going to paddle, the easier you're going to find it to paddle. So having a stiff board is fairly important. But it also shows you haven't got to get that top level of pressure in there to have a stiff board. So as far as the stiffness is concerned, we are very impressed. Stiffness really does make a difference when you're moving around the board. Let's say you want to try and put your board into more of an aggressive turn. You want to try and do a step back turn or teach yourself to turn the board faster. You're going to have to step back on the board and try and sink the tail to pivot on the tail a bit more. You will find the Yarra isn't the quickest board to turn because of that fin box, because it's further back. That's the downside to having that fin further back. But it's nice and stable, it's got good stiffness, and it's a good amount of width there still at the tail, so you can turn this board. And because it's got that change in deck pad there, you can definitely feel if you're riding it barefoot where your feet are on the board, which is a nice little feature. Looking at some of the other features you're definitely going to be using on the board, the bungees up at the front are really nicely placed. They're not too far forward, they're not too big, they're nice and chunky. You could still get a fairly big dry bag, or the dry bag it comes with underneath the bungees here, which is one of the reasons why it's nice to have a dry bag as standard with the package. So you could still paddle this board a little bit of distance. Obviously it's not going to paddle like a touring board or a longer base board, which is going to paddle much quicker and have much more glide, but you could still take this on a little mini adventure. Go out and get yourself into SUP touring, which is a fantastic discipline. If you haven't, definitely check out some of our other videos. We've done loads of family vlogs, all sorts of stuff on SUP touring. It's a great thing to get into. You've also got an extra D-ring up at the front there, which is handy maybe if somebody's towing you, or if you want to tie your board up somewhere. Just that extra D-ring on top of the board is great because it's easy to access and it doesn't drag or slow you down by having it on the bottom of the board. Definitely another thing which I need to speak about is the finish, the look, and the quality that all these fittings are put onto this board. Now, a really easy way to see if a board is finished well, or if the factory is paying attention to detail, is how graphics and layers are placed on top of the board. So before the board is put together, all these graphics are applied onto these separate materials. Now, when the factory has to put these together, they have to put all these materials and line them all up. Now, the finish of this is really good, and it's definitely a higher level as I've seen as some boards that are almost twice the price of this. It does show that the factory, or Jobe, are pushing the factory to make the quality really high. Not only that, I think the look of the board is fantastic. The colorways of this one in the teal color is exceptionally good, and it's definitely the sort of color I would probably go for, but obviously color is a real personal choice. Looking at ability, weight range and usage, ability of the board, You can be obviously a complete beginner to get into the sport doing this, or you could be somebody who's already got more performance boards and they want a just nice all-round paddleboard to paddle on the weekends, maybe when they're not doing their certain SUP discipline. The best weights for this, I would say it's going to take anybody from 65 kilos up to 120 kilos. The sweet spot weight, I would say, would be 70 to 105 kilos. The reason I say that is because obviously if you're heavier, you're probably going to want something a little bit wider to give you a bit more stability. And if you're lighter than 70 kilos, definitely into the 60 kilos, 55 kilos, you could use this board for sure. But because it's 6 inches thick, you might not need that extra stiffness. Jobe actually do have a thinner baseboard in their range, which definitely would be better for you to look at. When it comes to deflating and packing up your board, really quick and easy process. You've got one inflation-deflation valve. You push the button down, the air comes out the board. You can roll it up from the nose, force the air out of the board, put your strap around it and put it straight in your big dry bag. So now to give you some other information and finish off with some cons and a summary of the board. So other stuff to think about, you get a 3-year warranty as standard with this product as long as you register it when you get it, which is a very good amount of time to have on an iSUP. And I do know that Jobe have got a large customer service team that will help you with any potential problems you might have. Now, some of you may be aware that Jobe actually did a recall on some of their boards earlier this year because the factory was making the boards with a substandard glue, with a glue that they hadn't approved. Now, for Jobe to put a public recall out there, it actually really does say a lot about the company. It says that they're putting customer care really at the high level and they see there was a problem and they helped you fix this problem. I actually spoke to a few shops about how Jobe have been working with them and they were both saying how well that Jobe have supported them and how they fixed any of the potential problems and replaced any of those boards that were recalled. So definitely I think that's a very positive thing. This sort of thing does happen in the industry, but to see how a brand speaks about it publicly does show a lot about how they're putting their customers and their products first. Now I'm going to give you some cons of the Jobe Yarra. Now there isn't a massive amount of cons to this product because the board and package is a very well thought out complete package. The biggest con to this Jobe Yarra is though the packaging that comes when the board is brand new. There's a lot of plastic wrapped up around the board. There's a lot of plastic wrapped up around the accessories as well. Now, to be fair, a brand of Jobe's size should be looking to change that for sure. And a lot of you I know are buying products that have got much better packaging in the product itself when it comes new. So that is probably the biggest negative. Some of the smaller negatives, because it paddles in such a straight line, it's so easy to paddle in a straight line, your turning is a little bit harder. So if you are looking to want to spin around your board and get your turns a little bit faster, it isn't the best board for that. Most of you looking at all-round paddleboards aren't looking for that. Maybe also if you're looking to catch a few more waves, go surfing, you are going to be able to do that on this board, but it's not going to surf as well as a board that has side fins. And the other one, which is a small one, and it's an observation that we saw after we were paddling it, when you're paddling it at sub 80 kilograms, the back handle is absolutely fine and it doesn't drag in the water. But if you're 85 kilograms plus, you may find that the back handle touches the water a little bit. It's just going to slow you down a tiny bit. It's a small point, but it's definitely an observation. If you're 90, 95 kilograms, it's going to be more of an issue. But finishing off with some pros, the value for money and a summary of the Jobe Yarra, this board has got a lot of good stuff on it and in the package. It's really well finished. The quality of the board is definitely top notch. It is a very stiff board at a low pressure. The graphics and the colorways of this one look fantastic. The paddle is really good for the price point of the board package, and the pump and the backpack are fantastic. I really like having a dry bag as standard as the board bag. Value for money, I think at £699 or 799 euros or dollars, the Jobe Yarra is a very good price point board. Yes, it's definitely not your $200 Amazon, eBay special, but it's a board that's obviously been well made. There's a big brand behind Jobe. There's a large customer service team. So any issues, you get a 3-year warranty. So I will strongly push you away from those cheaper price point brands up to this sort of mid price point range. And this board is a good board to look at. I really hope you found this review interesting and informative, and it's helped you understand if the Jobe Yarra is a board you should be looking at. If you want to find out more potential boards you should be looking at, go on SUPboarder or on our YouTube channel. There's also tons of technique videos, and also if you're really getting into SUP, definitely check out SUPboarder Pro, which is our subscription service, which is where we go on the next level of SUPboarder content. I hope you get on the water later, and we'll see you on another SUPboarder video real soon.